Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Viztee podcast, a podcast where we introduce sci-fi shows to a fantasy nerd. I'm Viztee, and I'm here with Overlite, and we're going to be watching Andor episodes 4 to 6.
So Andor, huh?
Yeah, Andor. So, we're back. It's episode 4 to 6.
Yeah, this is our first time actually returning to a show.
Yeah, which I was feeling kind of weird about. But
Really?
yeah, I don't know. Because normally we talk about, like, oh, did you enjoy it? Would you want to watch more? But we are watching more,
Right.
so it's like, oh.
Yeah, we don't get...
that whole angle of the show, we just toss that in the trash. Unless we go, would you still want to keep watching more?
We don't get Overlite's opening, 5-minute opening rating on exposition, and that segment's gone.
It's
That's
completely
like
changed the whole theme of the show.
They've
I don't know
changed
what
the
to do.
format.
Oh my god.
I think that's like... Isn't that the point, though, that we eventually are going to hone down a list of shows?
Yeah, I think so.
We want to watch, and then flip between actually watching the shows and watching whatever new things come out. And this is short, so we're starting with a short thing. This will be
there's 12 episodes
total
of
for
Andor,
us.
So yeah, four episodes of podcast, and they're in nice little three episode chunks. So,
yeah,
like the first 3 we did last time. They end on that nice sort of thing of Andor. He killed some dudes, and then he went home, had to run away, and then a guy came to
this is
sort
a
of
great
recruit
summary.
him, essentially.
Killed some dudes, went home, had to run away. Bam.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what happens.
Episode 1 to 3.
Yeah. And a guy called Lurthen shows up to recruit him or purchase the stolen item that he had previously stolen, mainly to recruit him. And then they leave. And, I mean, lots of stuff happens, but we don't need to go into that. That was last time.
Yeah,
Just watch
I'm sure
the last
people,
episode.
yeah.
5 head.
I mean, okay, so this episodes 4 to 6, they kind of cover what Lurthen was recruiting Andor for.
In a way, yeah.
In a way.
Lurthen gives a great speech to Andor, straight away, about, what does Andor want to do? Does he just want to fuck off and live his life all running away for the rest of his life? Or does he want to stand up and fight against the shit that is the Empire? And he knows, Andor's backstory, that he served on Mimban. He went to prison. He knows all this stuff about him, so he knows Andor hates the Empire, and he knows that he would stand up against it.
I don't know where he got this information.
What do you mean?
He just has we haven't found out. Lurthen just knows a lot of things about Andor for some reason.
Yeah, but we do find out Lurthen, he seems like a pretty well-connected and quite influential kind of guy. As the episode goes on. Plus, he knew Bix, who was one of Andor's friends, / possibly they were also, at one point, banging. I don't know.
What?
They seem pretty tight, though, don't they? Andor and Bix, listen, they seem pretty close.
There's a 30-year age gap.
What, Bix? The girl who is Andor's friend in the first few episodes.
Yeah, and Luthen's 50.
No, not Lurthen. Andor.
Oh my.
Andor and Bix. Not Lurthen and Bix.
Jeez.
Jesus. Lurthen, he's, what, he doesn't, he ain't got time
You were
for that
talking
shit.
about
He's
Lurthen.
fucking building a rebellion or whatever.
Just suddenly were yeah, and he was possibly...
What do you mean?
I'm sorry?
Oh my god.
Excuse me?
Oh, no, you completely misinterpreted that.
Oh my gosh.
I can't
Yeah,
believe that.
10 minutes, 15 minutes into the episode, it turns out Lurthen is he's got ties. He's got deep ties.
Yeah.
He's got ties to Mon Mothma. And I heard Mon Mothma and I was like, oh, it's Mon Mothma. And then I realized I have no idea who Mon Mothma is.
So in the original trilogy, Mon Mothma she's on Yavin during the Battle of Yavin, which is like the first, I inverted commas, first major victory against the Empire, where they destroy the first Death Star. Mon Mothma, she's in charge of the a lot of the rebel cells come together into the Rebel Alliance, and Mon Mothma is in charge, effectively. One part of the leadership. She reunites them all. She pops up in bits and bobs of various lore. She's in Rebels. But at this point in Andor, she is currently a senator in the Galactic Empire. Because the Senate's still around. The Emperor is the Emperor.
Interesting, that.
And she is, and has been for a very long time, sowing the seeds of rebellion as best she can, and spending a load of her money on it, whilst also trying to politic her way through, as she was previously doing, being a senator.
She's spinning a lot of plates.
Yeah, she's got a lot on. And, what a queen, honestly.
I mean, it kind of is just like, good for her, I guess. I don't have that much to say in regards to Mon Mothma, apart from she has a kind of rocky family life.
So she's got a husband, and he seems to just...
he's fraternizing.
Yeah,
he's fraternizing with her political enemies.
Yeah, and he likes to have fun and everything, and doesn't seem to support her or really give a shit about the important work she's doing. And then she has a daughter who feels the same way, because I assume that partially it's kind of understandable, because Mon Mothma always has to be on, I assume, as a very, very well-known public figure, a senator in this massive empire, formerly Republic. She has to always, have a face on. She has to always be the senator.
Doubly so when you consider she is funding rebel cells.
Secretly funding starting the rebellion.
Yeah.
She can't be seen to do anything susp.
I will say her
so
inclusion...
her daughter is and very and also her daughter is a teenage girl. So she has that teenage girl fuck you, I won't do anything
retorts
you tell
incredibly
me
coherently and intelligently to everything her mum says.
Yeah, she's just like, fuck this. I'm not doing anything you tell me. But yes, so she's got a really shitty family life going on. Well, she's
I'm gonna be honest. I kind of think
the fucking galaxy.
I understand they're setting stuff up for later, but the Mon Mothma stuff is like fan service right now. Right in these episodes, it's just kind of fan service. We see that she's funding some rebels, and we see like way too much about. Well, at the moment, it's just like we see a lot into
establishing who Lurthen is as well. It's a lot of it's playing into Lurthen. Like, if you know the story, or even you don't even necessarily need to know who Mon Mothma is specifically.
But until we get payoff, I think it's wasting time.
And Mon, they're plotting something. She's giving him money. He's doing rebellion-y kind of money things. And Lurthen, he's got like this to cover all of these sort of sus transactions and shit. He runs a kind of... It's not really an antique shop, is it? It's like
It's a museum.
It's like a museum, but they sell like the really rare relics.
Yeah, to
He's
very rich
basically
people.
Indiana Jones, selling the relics.
Yep.
He's Robin Hood meets Indiana Jones.
I do think they go into the Mon Mothma stuff a lot, and right now it is entirely pointless. I'm sure it will come in later, and they had to set it up. But within this 4 to 6 episode span, this 3 episode span of 4 to 6, it's just like she's got a rough family life, and now she's in the car chatting to her husband, and now she's in the Senate seeing the news and speaking.
It's definitely
for the...
setting up. She's I think one of the great things about this series is that it's not just specifically about Andor, but it's about the sort of setting up of the rebellion and stuff at this period in time, which we haven't really seen much of. because the only thing we know about the rebellion before Rebels is that Ahsoka becomes Fulcrum and helps set stuff up with Bail Organa, and they're doing little bits, and that's like it. That's the only thing we sort of know from like the early days of the rebellion. A little bit of Saw Gerrera stuff as well, I guess.
I can't get across the pervasive feeling of disinterest that I have as soon as I start hearing like these different characters doing all these things, and Ahsoka is Fulcrum, and all these other things happen in these other shows. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, but if if you're into your Star Wars, then it's
yeah. If you're into
listen.
I just don't.
But anyway, Andor. I don't think
I'm not here to talk about
you can
other
easily
shows.
Watch it.
I'm here to talk about
watch
Andor.
it not knowing anything about other Star Wars shows, and it's still a fucking great show, and I stand by that.
I'm enjoying it.
So, Luthen, he
drops off Andor.
He drops Andor off on a planet called Aldhani with a woman who is leading a group of...
I don't even remember her name. There were a lot of characters.
Vel.
Vel, yeah.
Yeah. Who... What were you going to say?
I think... I don't know. There's a lot of... They spend a lot of time, like, getting... It turns out, like, she's leading some kind of plan. She's got some kind of plan to cause a lot of damage against the Empire. But they spend a lot of time, like, arguing between Luthen and Vel. And then Vel and Andor are, like, figuring things out and trying to cooperate and, like...
Yeah, because he's just been, like, thrown into... He's being paid by Luthen to help them pull off what is, like, a fucking mega bank heist. Of a whole sector's, like, trying to steal, like,
the quarterly wages of an entire sector.
And they end up with, like, the amount that they steal, spoilers, is 8 million credits or something, right? Or and credits are very nebulous in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But we remember that Luke said that 12,000 credits, you could almost buy your own ship for that. So
that's a
several
hell of
million.
A lot.
That's a lot of ships.
That's a lot of ships, yeah.
Yeah. And that was in Tatooine, so, who knows how expensive or cheap ships are in other places in the galaxy.
I think the reason that I'm feeling sort of... Like, I watched it, and I sat through all of these scenes of, like, them setting up the team and setting up the... It's the same thing they did in episodes 1 and 2.
Yeah. It's the really slow build up and the big payoff episode 3.
We're building a house so we can set it on fire, right?
Yeah.
And we spend another 2 episodes. Things do happen in these episodes. I have interesting things to say. I have interesting things to say about what happens.
Actually?
But literally, it's like, okay, they're gonna argue because they need to work out their arguing because it's a change of plans. And the story kind of needs this to happen. We have to build this house because the story needs there to be a house in the first place for us to burn it down. So they spend some time with Andor meeting Val, arguing, traveling, setting up some details kind of about like the Imperial presence in this area, the Aldhani locals.
I kind of liked all that though.
Yeah, I do have things to say about that. There are like... It's just like a lot of time he meets the team. They're all kind of like they argue about it.
They're like,
some
who
more.
the fuck's
They're
this
all
guy?
like,
Because they're 3 days away from doing this robbery,
and they've been planning it for months.
And he just gets dropped in.
But they're 3 days away because
they don't trust him at all.
We don't want to watch Andor plan for months. We want him to do something in 3 days.
Yeah.
So we need the house to exist. We need it now. So it's just like they've got this plan in 3 days. He's got to integrate. He's got a ton of stuff to do. He's got all this work to do. He has to interact with all of them. We have to learn all of their names. We have to get to know them all a bit so that we can, start appreciating the house so that when they burn it down, it's that much more exciting. When the kitchen goes, we're like, not the kitchen.
Yeah,
I love the kitchen.
The kitchen wrote a manifesto.
The kitchen wrote a manifesto.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. So these 2 episodes basically are spent. We can go through it in more detail, but like.
Well, I do want to say, watching them back together, I haven't watched them since they came out originally, and they came out one a week.
Oh.
So
that must have been so dry.
Oh, it was excruciating because the first episode 4, like, sort of sets up the heist and everything. And then you're like, oh, okay, I gotta wait a whole week for the next episode.
Then episode 5 is getting to the heist.
And then episode 5 is just them setting up more of the heist. And there's a lot of cool other stuff happening. Like, I was really enjoying all the Mon Mothma stuff, because it's nice to have Mon Mothma back, and it's the same actress who played her in
yes, I love having Mon Mothma back.
So I was excited to have more Mon Mothma as a big Star Wars fan, getting a bit more lore there. We got a bit more Lurthen stuff happening. And the main exciting thing is the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau.
I really enjoyed the ISB stuff.
Yeah, so if they're effectively the spies of the Empire, if the ISB ever comes around, you know that you're fucked.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, they're like the CIA of the Empire.
Yeah, or like. Yeah,
I just thought they were like
they are like the spy arm. I think the person who's in charge of their like group that we see, he says something he's giving a speech about what the ISB is, and he says something like, he's like, oh, we're the healthcare workers of the Empire. We're here to deal with the diseases of the Empire
before they get out of control.
And like, I guess that is one way of looking at it. Like, they are they have all of the intel and they act on things before they can become a problem, or they track down
honestly just thought they were like general authorities, like higher level authority people. Which I guess they are.
Well, I think, they have a lot of sway, and they just probably muscle their way into pretty much anybody's business unless they're a moff, a grand moff, or
they were the people. They were the people that turned up to the sector, the corporate security.
Yeah. So last time, like, Andor kicked off some shit, killed some corpos, and then they all went after him. The corporations, like, did the detect the inspector, he's like the second in command inspector, started this whole chain of events and basically got a load of his men killed. And the inspector above him told him not to even go after Andor because the Empire will take any excuse to take over.
Yeah.
And the Imperials took the excuse and they took over.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. So he's fucked up so badly.
Yeah. But there's some great things to say about it. They did some great things with it. I really enjoyed. It's weird how much in this show I enjoy the like imperial authoritative. I'm not the kind of person that would normally enjoy that, but like, I think it's because how they portrayed it. I just like it was good. It was meaty. I really enjoyed what they did, and the choices they made within this whole like episodes 1 to 3. We're looking at corporate security who have jurisdiction. Episode 4 to 6, we're looking at the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau. Was that there?
Yeah.
Who effectively have jurisdiction, who have like the authoritative power, and all the parallels they draw are great, and I really just they were very tasty. Do we want to talk about that, or is there something else we want to?
No, I think dive into that, and then
because they show up early, right? They show up quite early. We get a cut, just a sudden cut to some Imperial structure. Immediately, I'm like, kind of enjoying just the aesthetics in like a this is super like imperialistic.
It's so
brutalist.
yeah, outside it's that classic sort of Imperial style. Inside it's all
Clean
white,
white.
and clean. Unlike
Whites and
the
greys.
sort of ships and the Death Star and stuff that are more like dark grey and black and have like white lighting. This is like flipped. This all incredibly white, incredibly clean.
I love
They're all in white uniforms.
I love the way all of the Imperial stuff is portrayed as this extremely clean cut. Like, everything has to be clean, everything has to be one sort of clear color, everything is like uniform. You know, everything's like,
Yeah.
everything's as it should be. Everything is in order, in place, like fixed. It's so like, it's just so like good to. There's something just really enjoyable about the fact that you watch it and you know they're portrayed as the bad guys, and you know it's wrong because of how clean it is. Like, there is no dirt, there is no stain, and that like persists from like the aesthetics and the uniforms and the like way that they're all organized into different like regiments and the like hierarchies they have, and also the way they treat each other, which is a thing that is like a recurring theme in episode 1 through 6. There is like recurring themes of how these people in positions of power treat each other, and it's just like so enjoyable to watch. And like when we get to the Imperial level, it's like the most extreme version, and it's like it just dominates everything, and it's like so, it's so good. It's just a really like, it's tasty. I enjoyed it in the like cinematographic I can't say that. In the cinematography way of like the characters, the aesthetics, the writing, just like everything about it was Imperial.
Yeah. And I don't think they, like that ISB stuff, I don't think it went into like super, like they felt intimidating in what they were doing and what they were saying and everything. But I think it was when we got to more of the Imperial presence on Aldani, the planet that they're heisting from, that felt a lot more like, I loved that portrayal of the Empire as well, where it was like the governor or commandant or whatever of the station is like,
it was a weird,
like, he's like a fucking asshole, and it
was a weird mix of, for me it felt very, very insidious and also quite intimate at the same time.
Yeah, because he's like basically giving a tour to this engineer who's coming to do a project there, and they're trying to destroy the locals, essentially. Like we find out that they've herded all the locals away from their like farms and stuff, and basically forced them to live
and from their sacred
in
sites.
One area.
Yeah,
from their sacred
on
sites.
this planet of Aldani, there were like thousands of Aldani natives who had not like been forced. The way they say it is like they were given an like alternative place to live, and basically like persuaded to all congregate
like, the Empire
out of their,
over 12 years has manipulated
out of their mountains
people.
And into this settlement that they had been built for them. They were offered
like,
housing.
Oh, look, we've made you this beautiful settlement with all these amenities and cheap alcohol and
it's effectively
etc.
It's effectively a cultural genocide. It's effectively like they have, I mean, we don't like see it in specifics, but the way it's portrayed makes it sound very insidious.
And the way that they discuss it as well. He's like,
sickening.
But he treats them like they're garbage. And like they're less than
like
than
it's like they're treated
Imperials,
like animals that you can herd around.
Yeah, it's like, they're very simplistic people, and you can give them a choice, or like they can't think too hard about more than one thing. So if you give them a bunch of choices, they'll forget about whatever it was they were trying to do in the first place, and all this. And it's horrible.
I also
but it's
think
portrayed so well. Like it really shows like how awful the Empire is and how they just really have just a deep distaste for and uncare for any other people's culture that isn't the Empire.
It's a big sort of colonial. It's a big colonialism moment in this planet.
Yeah.
But, like it harkens a lot more to like the colonialism aspects of imperialism. Like the Empire.
Yeah.
The Empire is an empire, and suddenly you're like, oh, they like what they did to these people is what happened in empires in real life.
Yeah, it very much like very harkens back to a lot of things that happened and have happened and still probably happen quite a lot in real life.
Yeah, but like they have this, so a very core component of what happens in episode 6 is this thing that they're planning towards, this event, which they just keep calling it the Eye. I can't remember the proper name. Or the full...
it was in Aldani, the name I can't remember, but it's like the Eye is
and it's this event, this like beautiful event of like tons and tons of what look like meteors. It's like this beautiful meteor shower that everyone's looking forward to. Comes once every 3 years. Everyone's talking about it. I was thinking about that and how like, so they discuss like, oh, originally there were like 15,000 or like 30,000
like that.
Aldani would congregate in this valley and celebrate this event and these like the passing of like the Eye. And now it's down below. Last year it was below 100, and like I think it's like 60 this year.
Oh yeah, I think they said that there was 80 on the route at one point.
Yeah. But it's something I find. This is why I say it's incredibly insidious the way the Empire acts, and at the same time weirdly intimate. And I think that's because this is my call out post to like the Empire prides itself on being this like regimented, well structured. It brings order, it brings peace, it brings like all these things. It's like this, you know, it prides itself on so many things that we've sort of just described, and you know how awful they are, really. But like at that level, when you get to the sort of like level of like the people who are working on this planet as Imperial engineers, Imperial workers, soldiers, whatever, the ones working in the base, because the Imperial base that they have is like right next to where this sort of event happens.
Yeah,
and
they basically, it used to be on a river, and they've dammed the river.
And like everywhere we see everyone's very hostile. It's an incredibly hostile culture. In, you know, it like people talking to their bosses, and like there is a level of like trying to avoid their attention because the attention is always bad, because they're gonna speak some shit at you. The reason I'm like immediately so enthralled by the Imperial stuff is we get that, you know, shot of the outside of the ISB, and then inside we're in a meeting where we have one guy. I see it. I'm like, oh, this is a board meeting. I don't know what it is, but it's a board meeting, and there's like one guy who is clearly in charge. He's like getting reports from everyone, and he's giving them very harsh responses. He's like telling people off. He's telling people like, oh, you haven't done well enough. I'm reassigning things. And I'm like, I'm looking at this, and I'm like, this is like just when your asshole boss turns up and thinks he knows everything and is like telling you how to do or like, you know, it's like they're in this meeting, and this guy is. Sure, he's like keeping watch and making sure everything's running on a tight ship, but he's also just like being a massive asshole about it.
Yeah.
And like this is a recurring theme of the a recurring trend, I don't know if you call it a theme, of like the people in positions of power being absolute assholes to the people below them within like the structure of the Empire.
And we see that in...
You get to the level of the local level of these like natives on Aldani, and suddenly it's like all of the guys who work on the planet they know the eye is coming. They all want to see it. Like, we have a scene where one of them is talking to their boss and is like, they need to like repaint some stairs or something.
Yeah,
and
he's
it's like,
like,
I want
oh, you
these
haven't
painted
no,
tomorrow
it's
for
the mess. You were supposed to have repainted the mess.
And the guy's like, sir, the only reason people come here is to see this event because they want to see it.
Yeah, it's like this is the shit. It like a really shit posting.
Yeah,
but you wanna see this thing because it's so
and
insanely
like
cool.
The lieutenant in charge of this station relents. He's like, okay, just make sure it's done in 2 days, not by tomorrow. Like, you can take the evening off. And it's like,
I mean,
to me,
to be fair,
he
did that because he was one of the rebels.
Well,
and he kind of manipulated the situation to get them out of the area.
Okay, yeah, but at the same time, all of the soldiers are still there because they want to see like this event. Like, like sure, they're priding themselves on running a tight ship or whatever the fuck, but it just because like
it felt more human.
Yeah, it's more human, and I think it kind of flags the hypocrisy is maybe not the right word, maybe it is, of this like idea that the Empire is like regimented, it's well ordered, it's like, and we know they're bad because it's the Empire and the Empire is obviously bad, but like if you look at it from a, you know, not knowing who are the bad guys, you have this like organization where everyone is assholes to each other and they're priding themselves on keeping order, being, you know, the health workers that root out the disease, and we've all got our own stations, and we all have our own things to work on. We've all, like, you know, it's strict, it's regimented, it's clean, and then you get to like the bottom level, and it's like, actually, like, everyone kind of is here for their own reasons.
Yeah, and it's nice to see, because a lot of the time in a lot of Star Wars stuff, especially, you just see, and even in like a lot of other media, you always see the bad guys, in this case, like the sort of troopers, because these aren't stormtroopers, they're just soldiers, but you always see them like, they're like, oh, they're the bad guys, so they're just, yes sir, I'll do that.
I love how they humanize
I'm the
all
bad
of these
guy.
characters.
But they're like, they're a lot more human. They're people that for whatever reason they're there working for the Empire, doing a job, and their boss is a dick, and he's making them carry some fucking random shit around, or carry his wife's fucking settee around the office or whatever. It's like,
it's
and
when you look at it,
they want to see this crazy celestial event that's happening on this planet, and they're like, oh, come on,
when you look at it through the lens of when you look at it through the lens of like that very human element of just wanting to see the, you know, just wanting to see the eye, that's why they're here, and you look back at like all of these different levels of like the big guy at the top in charge, and then the people that work under him that we get a look at, and we get a look at how they work with their co-workers, sort of colleagues, I guess, and how they work with the people below them, and it's like you realize that they're all just being assholes to each other, and they're all just kind of like getting off on the position of power they have, and this is so beautifully highlighted to me. When one of the sort of, so we've got this top level guy, and then we have all the people under him. One of those people under him, that's sort of the second layer, is like back on the planet from episode 1 to 3, and they're like re-outfitting like a hotel to work as like a headquarters or something.
Yeah.
And he's like talking to his underling, and he's like, "Will it be ready as our headquarters?" And the guy's just like, "Can I be made prefect?"
Yeah, it's like, oh, I know it doesn't pay any better, but I just want the title. And he's like, I don't give a fuck about the title. It's like, who, what a stupid and pointless, do you want this hotel as your base or not? I don't give a shit about this irrelevant nonsense. And he just sasses the shit out of him.
But it's like that it's a guy, when you strip it down, it's a guy wanting,
could I have this title,
the feeling of power.
Yeah.
Like,
well, we even see it, like, not even in the Empire's military. We go back to Coruscant with Cyril, who is the inspector who, you know, caused all the problems.
Yeah, the hard ass from episode 1 to 3.
He basically doesn't have a job anymore because he's completely fucked over.
I love what
they
did with Cyril.
And so he has to go back and live with his mum on Coruscant. And she's an asshole as well.
She's horrendously abusive.
yeah, she's a horrible asshole, and it's just,
she opens the door.
It's systemic.
Yeah, it's incredibly systemic.
Yeah, everybody's an asshole.
It's like it's so it's so delicious what they did with Cyril. I'm so glad. Like, there's more things I have to say about Cyril and
because you hate he's
hate
the baddie
him
essentially in the first 3 episodes.
I kind of didn't hate him because I kind of did feel like I think at the end of episode 3 I felt like
he gets
he was going to be redeemed somebody drops a line in the episodes 4 to 6, which is everyone has their own rebellion, and they say it right after a Cyril scene.
Yeah,
I think it might have been a different. Oh no, it was. I'm literally looking at my notes. Right after a Cyril scene, they have this conversation about everyone having their own rebellion. It's right, and I'm just like, I'm there, and I'm like, I feel like I just never hated Cyril because he was entertaining in a very slow show, and also because I'm watching him and I'm like, this guy, he's gonna have, we're gonna follow his perspective change. Like, that's why we're here with him.
Yeah.
Because by the end, he is going to have, in whatever regards, have changed his perspective on the entire thing, and had it be catalyzed by all the events that have happened so far.
Yeah, well, throughout these episodes, we see him. He has a little hollow with Andor.
He's just
still
sad now, basically.
He's still thinking about that whole situation with Andor and the fact that Andor got away.
But I really enjoyed what they did with. Sorry, I have so much to say about that.
He's stuck there with his mum, and his mum is
opening scene.
Have a job, and
she opens the door.
Just tearing into him.
Yeah, she opens the door, sees him, immediately slaps him, and then immediately hugs him. And I'm like, the textbook, the classic abuse playbook where you hurt someone and then you shower them with love.
Yeah,
we love that one. We love that one. But it's very clear that he doesn't like his mum at all. And
and he got away and he didn't come back and see her or anything.
Yeah.
But now he has no choice.
The way they talk, you can tell, or at least I could tell. The way they talk is so interesting because it is such the conversations they have are like, she's talking at him and in a way that's incredibly it's awful. It's like just so she's constantly
she's making decisions for him.
Yeah.
Whilst he's there, come back.
She's degrading him.
Yeah, she's
being reductive about him. She's
gaslighting the shit out of him.
She's demanding as well.
Yeah.
And the only reason we know she's able to do this is because he doesn't have anywhere to go. And he did have a place to go, but I really like kind of the sudden reflection of he had a place to go and he kind of fucked it up. I might need to think about this one some more. Actually, I'm processing it in my head.
Well, he did what he thought was right, but did it in a very shit way, very aggressive and.
I think he was trying to help, right?
Yeah, he was, because Andor killed 2 officers, and so he was trying to bring Andor to justice, which is understandable.
Because he's dealt with his shitty mum, and you can see why he'd not want other people to have to suffer in a similar way, but it's kind of I want to say projecting
very
a little
human.
bit.
You can see a lot about him. You can see kind of how he got there throughout these episodes. There's a lot of backstory, sort of stuff about how he became who he is, and we're gonna see more of him.
It's incredibly
some little, but there's a little bit of extra just stuff because that doesn't currently tie back into the story at all.
I'm just thinking about cycles of abuse. I'm just thinking about how he was in a place where he kind of abused his power to do terrible things.
Yeah, he didn't respect the locals of the place.
Yeah,
and he paid the price for it.
And he has in the same way he has a mother who has this power over him now because he doesn't have anywhere to go, who also doesn't respect him. And then at the same time within the imperial system, we see all these people who don't really respect each other. Also like being assholes all the time. It's like it's just like this incredibly systemic issue where it's like no matter where you look, everyone is like harsh to each other. They're unkind, cold, uncaring, disrespectful. Diminutive is the word I want to use. Like the expectations everyone has of everyone else is so like low. It's at the same time, I'm also a little bit like, gosh, some of this sure does feel like a reflection of modern day situations.
Yes, well, that's it. I think, and there's a character who is writing a manifesto. He's one of the people in this rebellion, the rebel group. There's like 7 of them. He's there because he believes wholly in the cause of rebelling against this empire, this corrupt and horrible society. And he gives like a good speech about, you know, the issues with the empire and how it's up to the little people to stand up and stuff. And honestly,
I will admit,
I can't remember exactly. I wish I'd written it down. But as I was watching it, I was like, this is so true to issues in real life.
Yeah,
like it's so reflective of real life.
Yeah, I do think he talks very fast.
He does, yeah.
I didn't keep up with his talking that much. And I think like I'm trying to I think the show does try and treat him with respect because we see like Andor listening to him, right?
Yeah.
And at the end,
like
Andor takes his manifesto off with him when he leaves.
Yeah. Because Andor, like, throughout the show, we know that in the end, he is a true, because we know Rogue One, the film.
Yeah.
We've seen where Andor ends up. Like, we know his journey. So we know that in the end, he is a rebel and he believes and he fights for the cause. And this is him, like, getting to that point. And in the show, he's still, like, we see that he does care and he does want to fight for the cause a bit, but part of him doesn't want to give his life for it. I think currently where he's at is he's happy to help other people fight for the cause, but he doesn't want to fight for it himself, basically. That's kind of how it's, unless he's getting paid, in which case he'll do a job if he thinks that he can make it through. But and we see, like, through these episodes, he does listen to Nemec, who is the character who's writing this manifesto. He does listen, but he's still not convinced. But when we even see at the end of the 3 episodes, one of the crew goes to betray the rest and steal all of the money that they've just stolen that's supposed to go toward the rebellion, and Andor kills him without hesitation. He shoots first, unlike Han, am I right, everybody? Yikes. He just, and then Andor could have stolen all the money because he's killed this other guy.
He could have just gone.
But he chooses to give this 8 million credits or 80 million credits or whatever ridiculously large amount of credits it was. He chooses to give that to the rebellion and just take his cut that he was promised, and he fucks off. Like, so we see his journey through the show.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe his perspective will change a bit.
In
these next 6 episodes.
Yeah, I think Star Wars is very it likes to build these rebellions on a pile of corpses. I'm gonna say it now. At the end of the episode, we get a scene of Lurthen, like, hearing about the news and hearing about how their mission's been successful, and he goes to the back room and he's, like, chuckling to himself, and it's, like, weirdly, I don't think the show emphasizes it that much, but it is kind of just like there was seven of them that went in, or was there 8 in total? I think it was 7.
Yeah.
7 of them went in. 3 of them are alive by the end.
Well,
and we don't even know if the third
3.
one is actually gets out safe or not.
Yeah.
It's unlikely if I had to hedge. So
But like, I don't know. I kind of like how so during like the sort of their break-in, they are. We're just gonna jump around a bit in
we're
the plot.
just jumping
But
around.
during their
It's
break-in,
a lot to talk about.
they like get the commandant of the thing and they use him to open the vault.
Oh,
And
this
then
is so again with the like. This is another thing with what I was talking about, like the insidiousness of the Empire versus like the intimacy that it had on this like more local level. Like obviously what they were doing was terrible, but at the same time, sorry, do you want to go on? Because
no,
I know.
carry on.
Okay, well, because at the same time, because they take hostages, right, in order to succeed in their mission, and we see the it's a really interesting contrast because the commandant has a family with him at this station, this imperial station, this like high level officer
and
commandant has his wife
also
and his
wants to
young
get
boy.
out of that place.
Yeah.
Because he's just there because it's his job. He's been assigned to that post, and he's hoping that this new engineer guy who's come will move him out of this place, maybe, or something, like get them out.
There's something here that I can't quite put into words because we've got him and his family and the sort of strained relationship that they have, but he just wants to like get himself to a better place. And then we've got Mon Mothma and her family and the strained relationship there, and she's like trying to get everyone to a better place in a way. Like she's trying to change the system for the betterment of everyone, like as a whole. Then,
it's kind of weird because we know Mon Mothma, like, it's not that she is currently, like, she's not making any choices that require her to directly, like, sacrifice her family, but we know that by the way they're all interacting, that she has obviously made choices to further her goals over prioritizing her relationship with her family.
Yeah, like forcing her family to join her in whatever instance for a good public image, for example.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the
or at least that's what her daughter implies
Yeah.
that she's doing, even if that wasn't what she was trying to do.
But so we've got the commandant and his family, and it's like they have a strained relationship, and they undergo this like ceremony with the natives. It's very like both sides are like very obviously not into it, but it's sort of like this tradition thing that they maintain to maintain peace between them.
Oh yeah, and they don't speak the same language, or at least they aren't speaking the same language.
Perhaps they do, and they just don't actually.
The guy who is in charge of the Aldani thing is just sassing the fucking shit out of the Empire and just talking absolute shit to them. And the Empire, they're also being a bit sassy, but they're not on the same level. The guy even intentionally mistranslates it, and the Aldani person, he acts like he knows that he's mistranslated it. And it's like, so he knows something's up. I think it was like kind of like a nice little like, oh, that's kind of sus. He just completely.
I don't know. I think there's. I think it's more like, for me, it seemed more like entertainment-y rather than the guy figuring out that this local officer was in on something. It's like, you wouldn't want to piss people off if you were the...
No, I think it was more like he was sort of... The officer who was one of the rebels was sort of giving the impression that the Empire doesn't care about them. He was trying to get that impression across in his translation without directly saying anything. He was like trying to sort of so that they knew that the Empire like despises them essentially. Without directly saying anything.
Anyway, the commandant. There's something here that I can't put my words on because we have this like the commandant is like of the Empire and of that. I think it's the humanizing of them. Like, it's the way all of these characters are humanized as, like, we get an insight in why they are the way they are and why they are so toxic to each other and unhealthy. But then, like, his family gets taken hostage, and so quickly, it's immediately, like, he is he goes from being this like hard ass high up commander person to like he does everything he can to like keep his family alive by cooperating with them.
And his people.
Yes, and
as
his
well.
people. The people
he,
in the
comes
station.
Down and he goes.
He is like very persuasive about getting them to cooperate because he doesn't want anyone to die.
Yeah.
And he's like explains the situation clearly, and he's like, I want you to cooperate because I don't want anyone to die here.
And they will. I believe that they'll kill again.
Yeah.
Like, so do as they say because they will kill you. And we can get through this without dying.
Yeah. Which is not what you'd expect from an Imperial officer. You'd expect, like... You kind of...
That's what I mean, yeah. When I'm saying that, like, a lot of the time, the sort of bad guys, they'd be like, no, I'm the bad guy. I'm not going to do what you say. And then the good guys would just shoot them and it'd be like, well, we tried.
Attack the men!
Yeah.
It's like...
Oh, you know, well, we gave it a shot. Good guys. We tried.
Yeah,
anyway,
I really enjoy the contrast of how everyone on Aldhani, the Aldhani station, all the Imperials on Aldhani, as much as they are complicit into this horrible like cultural genocide that has been happening, they also like give us an insight and humanize a lot about like how it gives us a much like deeper understanding into why the Empire is the way it is and what keeps it running and why these people are so awful to each other and why some of them are just really shitty people.
Yeah.
And it's not like the Empire is just evil for the sake of evil. It's like we get an understanding into how these people are kind of abusing what they have.
A real systemic problem of just... It's like passed down of every like somebody's an ass and somebody else's an ass.
I love it. It's so good. It's such good
and it
characterization.
just comes all the way from the top. From old fucking the Emperor, I guess.
Anyway, speaking of parallels...
anyway, let's not get into fucking deep fucking Emperor manipulating everybody into being an ass.
I don't give a shit about that. That's not on the show.
Moving on.
I don't give a fuck. We're watching
I was
Andor.
Gonna say,
Who's the Emperor?
We were talking about the Emperor of the Empire, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know who he is. It's not in the show.
You might be. The deaths. We talk about like people dying for the rebellion and like a lot of them not making it out of this attack.
I think this is my one like tension point with like all the things I love, like just in terms of like political alignment. I'm like, wow, I love so much of what this show puts down, and then I'm like looking at all the people that die along the way there, and I'm like, is this?
Well, I kind of like it because a lot of the time you would have like a set of good guys and they always make it through or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, that still happens because Andor, you know, they're the main character, so, you know, we know what happens to them. But it's like, it wasn't even just the good guys, like some of them dying. It was the sort of POV Imperial characters as well. So like the Commandant, he's working on surviving, and then they're making him transport the money from the vault onto the ship, and he ends up, because he's overweight and unfit, as we find out from a little cheap like bit of him trying to get dressed. Before he ends up, he has a heart attack.
He has a heart attack. Oh shit.
Rip. Or he passes out. I think he has a heart attack. Okay. And he keels over and he dies. And so he's just dead, like unceremoniously. And then there's a guy who's like a comms officer, and he's an Imperial comms officer, and he figures out that the comms have been sabotaged, and he manages to tune in to the rebels' radios because they're using some Imperial radio frequency thing, and he manages to tune into it because he's pretty fucking good at his job, and he figures out something's going on in the vault, so he heads down there, and he confronts them, and instead of him, like, he doesn't die in a glorious death or like big boss fight kind of death, he just gets shot in the firefight, just
like immediately. He's like the first one to get shot. Yeah,
he's like the second person to get shot, and he goes down, and that's it. It like gets super fast. He's just like, it's like bam, bam, bam. People are getting shot all around. He goes down. Somebody else goes down. One of the goodies goes down. Like somebody else goes down, and it's just everybody dies.
Really
and it's
fast.
Very like, yeah, and it's not. None of the deaths are like sort of ceremonial.
Yeah.
Like they're not.
Yeah.
It's just people
I
die
appreciate that.
in war, and it was really nice. And the only one that's like
I mean,
slow.
that's how like fights tend to be, is quick and brutal, right?
Yeah. I think it's nice to like have this sort of more realistic
in a show
kind of
that's
style.
really like going ham with the parallels to real life and the sort of statements it's saying about, you know, who the kind of people that exist, or what the system breeds. And it's nice to have it like continue that within its fighting.
Yeah.
Rather than be,
I think
like,
the only death
heroism.
that's kind of more ceremonious is Nemec, who is our lovely lad. He writes the manifestos. He's a top guy. He's really lovely.
Quite sweet.
He gets crushed by an unsecure gravity cart that's loading the materials on, and he still manages to get them to safety using his navigation device. And then they try and rescue him, take him to a doctor, but he sadly still dies.
I think it's weird for me because the follow-up to that scene is the one with Lurthen getting the news and laughing about it. And like in my head still were the corpses of the guy who tried to betray the rebels and Nemec. Like they both die at the end
of the day. Lurthen, I think we see little bits of it during, like, when he talks to Vel first before he gives Andor to her at the start, and you see him, like, he's trying to convince her that it's the right idea, and when she pushes back, he snaps. And he just shouts at her instead, and he's like, no, you're, like, and you can see this, even though he seems very charismatic, he seems very there's this edge to him of, like, he wants this rebellion. He has an anger there, a brutality. There's something about him. And so him, like, laughing at the success of the mission, even though he knows it's
over the bodies of these, like,
he doesn't give a shit about that. Or, like, at the end of the day, like, the rebellion is what matters.
I mean, he didn't shed any blood in that. It was just money.
Yeah.
And risk to himself. Yeah, I think now that you've pointed out the argumentativeness that he had, the way he
he just
it was very
briefly...
interesting the way he's the one who took Andor to Vel, and he told Andor, he was like, she's in charge, and then he went to her and she was very clearly not in charge in the conversation.
Oh yeah, but he was in charge of the mission, but he was in charge. Yeah.
So I think it just on like a predictions for the future, I think there may be, because this is what I was sort of harking to when it comes to, like, I think you need to be careful about how you portray these kinds of, like, rebellion things, because if you look at, like, history and, like, revolutions and, like, what actually happens and what comes about of them, there's quite I want to say a common occurrence of, like, you replace one dictator for another, and a lot of, like, poor people die in the process.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of looking at this, and I'm seeing sparks of that in Lurthen, and, like, how little ultimately he gave a shit about the people that had to die to get to where they are.
Yeah, and
his own like position of power.
What if Andor becomes a problem? And they're like, well, that's what I paid him. He's disposable. Like he doesn't. At the end of the day, he doesn't.
Gets you questioning his
Yeah.
May see some.
And he also is, like, very
from him
kind
later.
of very sort of focused on the rebellion, sort of angry at Mon Mothma as well, when she's talking about how it's getting harder for her to move money into, like, helping his operation.
Yeah, I think ultimately when you are trying to, like, because the whole thing is about, like, trying to make change, right? I think you have to keep that, like, the understanding in your head of, like, who you're doing it for. It's like, if your rebellion is built on corpses, it's not great. It's not great. It's like, violence is a necessity sometimes, but I think the
rebellions are built on hope.
Lurthen seems to be building his on disposable mercenaries, corpses,
whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. Yeah. It's like something about losing sight of your goals and causing more harm.
Well,
than you ended up saving.
I'm excited to watch the rest of the episodes.
I know. I feel like we're drawing to a conclusive point, but I actually have more that I want to talk about. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've got a lot of things I kind of want to dip in.
I'm going back to Cyril for 1 second because I need to explain to you.
Wait, do you want to talk about his cereal and his blue milk?
No, why?
Oh. What? You not see the blue milk?
I give a shit.
Oh my god.
I did see it.
This.
I was like, ew, and then I
shout out to the blue milk.
Not sponsored? What?
Hashtag not sponsored. What?
So, okay, episode 1 to 3. Cyril, in the position... Remember, think back to who he is in those episodes and the position he holds of, like, strict... this, like, image of strictness and trying to do more and, like, pushing himself and, like, reaching and, like... Even, like, his partner in crime, the other guy who is gone now, the Pockets of Fermenting Man, R.I.P., I loved him. And I just loved how in this episode we had Cyril, like, post all of that, struggling with what he was doing. And we had this new character within the ISB. I don't know her name, but she is...
Dedra.
Sorry?
Dedra.
Dedra is a carbon copy of Cyril from episodes 1 to 3. She is... like,
I think she's a bit more level-headed than Cyril.
Perhaps a bit more level-headed.
Cyril was a bit more like he didn't know what he was getting into necessarily.
No, but I think they have a similar attitude.
First into it.
I think the only thing that's different is their environment, where Cyril was in an environment of people who were just kind of trying to get by and trying, like, they were working this job and, like, these two people died, but they died of their own fault. It wasn't as if, like, they died because they did some stupid shit. And they were all and it wasn't
as
like
a lot
some
of negligence and all
Yeah.
whatever because his boss told him to cover it up.
Yeah.
Whereas in the ISB, I mean, she just gets told...
She gets reprimanded for going beyond her station.
Yeah.
But like in a way that was like she was neglecting her own duties, not like oh, there's no need to go beyond your own station
because
wasn't
being told to cover it up or anything.
Yeah,
it was like a overreach.
It was like a hey, focus on your own shit first, ma'am. But like, she is in my eyes, she seemed a carbon copy of Cyril from episode 1 to 3, where she had this like she was trying. She felt like there was something going on. She felt that she compelled to do something about it. She had a +1 who was assisting her. So she was looking at all the things that had been stolen and like was like trying to draw it together, and she was like really thinking there was something there, and like really like it just felt she felt like the same character that Cyril was in episode 1, where like it was this same like kind of driven to do as much as possible, and like
I think she's a really really cool character there. I do know what you mean. She's very similar. Like, she has that same sort of drive. I think she's very cool. It's cool to, like, sort of see her POV as, like, somebody who is kind of piecing together some of the things going on, and she's trying to work on it inside the ISB. It's cool to see the ISB.
I've remembered why I wanted to talk about this.
Perspective.
Yeah. So I think the reason I like this so much is because, to me, seeing that so quickly illustrated how we were being presented with a new organization, a new group of people, a new attire, and like it's a new, we don't know the ISB. We go in, we immediately see a character who is the same. And it's like, in my head, I'm like, oh, it's different suits, same people. Like it's the same thing that was with it. It's the same immediately I'm like, okay, there are parallels between corporate security and the ISB being drawn here. And like I think corporate security in the end was like very much more like lax and much more like weirdly more human, even though it was like obviously like rife with negligence and, you know, just people trying to get by, people trying to, you know, corruption for people trying to work for themselves. But it was within a system that didn't care about them. Anyway, just to excuse them. Whereas the ISB seems incredibly like people are there doing jobs, and they're like, you know, there seems to be some belief in like the purpose they hold for more of them, and like taking pride in their work and more of that. But like to me, it was like seeing the similarity between Dedra and Cyril was like the show telling us we were seeing the same thing again at a higher level that we had seen with corporate security, but with the ISB. And it's like, if they're going to do some really stupid, terrible shit that we're going to witness because they have like unruly amounts of jurisdiction and far more authority than they should have, I wouldn't be surprised if when that happens, because they seem like very similar organizations.
If the robbing of several million credits from an Imperial vault will have any effect on their power going forward.
Will be very interesting. Alright, I'm just going through my notes. Quick points.
I think I wanted to shout out the beautiful, the whole the eye, the
so
celestial
beautiful
event. It was just a lot of like crystal meteor shower, but it was so fucking beautiful. Like the whole thing, it was done so well. It was so gorgeous. So that was incredible.
Also, it like came at the sort of climax of this. The action scenes, and the intensity like that was this infiltration.
Music, everything was all building and cutting back and forth.
Between the
like them breaking in and the people
outside,
the Aldani outside dancing,
like celebrating,
and cheering and celebrating and looking at
the increasing meteors.
Yeah, and it was just this build,
hostages.
this build.
Oh my God.
It was so good. It was so good.
Oh. It was. I did not honestly. I wrote so few notes for episode 3 because I think I was just like in it. I was like, there was less to say. To be fair, I think it was much more like watching the resolution of events.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was really good. It was a really good.
There was also a beautiful shot which we don't really see very often. Of there was some TIE pilots.
Oh yeah, them deploying.
You see them like you see them like getting their gear on or whatever, putting their helmets on, like getting into their craft, switching all the buttons on the inside, like detaching, like a POV, them lowering down,
the alarms were like
syncing
with the music as well. It was so good.
Great.
Oh, it was really intense. They do a really good job of making these scenes intense. It's great.
And I think Andor so far, especially in those 3 episodes, has done a really good job of making a TIE fighter seem scary as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas in a lot of Star Wars, it's like, the TIE fighters, they'll get blown up. The rebels will just shoot them up the sky, whatever, TIE fighters. But it's like, you know, they're an incredibly dangerous death machine to anybody. Yeah. They can fly insanely fast and they will just blow you away. And if you're not in an X-wing and as a trained pilot, then you're fucked.
Yeah. I also want to shout out something I've just clocked in my head. All of the every scene with the Imperials, the ISB, and with Cyril is, I already said it was like clean. I want to specifically shout out brutalist architecture. Because it's clean and it's all fucking concrete, baby. Like outside of the specific ISB building, like it's concrete floors, concrete walls. Cyril's house is a concrete
Cyril's
apartment block
where they walk down that apartment block to his mother's house.
It's
That's
all
a
concrete.
real place in real life. That's an actual building.
Shout out to brutalism, the architectural style. But like that as a representation of like the I know brutalism came from a different place, but like aesthetically it's like very cold and uncaring and very like regimented and like ordered. And then that was being juxtaposed with all of the rebel scenes that we got where everything was green. They were just in nature. They were just hanging out in a green park, you know? And I just realized in my head, again, with the fucking, the Imperial base, it's kind of the bridge between the two, where we had the Imperial base of like all of its like it looked like a dam. I think it probably was a dam.
It was a dam.
Yeah, it was very like concrete structures and metal.
Used to be on a raised part in the river or something. The celebration
area. And like and plates and like, but that was within the valley. And in my head, I've just realized the sort of the function of that base as like the bridge between the like themes of the rebellion and the themes of the Imperials and the like the way it interacts to illuminate. Just, I feel like I'm doing GCSE English again here. Holy shit, what is happening? God, I didn't think. I'm excited to do a third episode on the same show. It's gonna get wild.
I wanted to shout out. There's a lot of little nods to stuff for like Star Wars fans. So, Hosnian Prime was mentioned a lot, which is the Hosnian system is where in the sequel trilogy, the New Republic has its capital, and it gets blown up by the Starkiller base, big laser thing, in the first sequel film. In Luthen's back office, he has what appears to be possibly a Jedi holocron, and definitely what looks like a Sith holocron, just chilling in his fucking back of his thing.
Okay.
He gives Andor a Kyber crystal, which is crystal from a lightsaber, which looks damaged, which
I know that
one. Kind of sus. Kind of a sus weird, strange thing to have. But then he is a collector of lots of antiquities. So
yeah.
I think there's a lot of little things. There's Starkiller's armor from the non-canon games. Starkiller, they were a clone of Anakin, I think, in their games. I don't know if you ever played them, but his like armor's in Luthen's thing. I think there's another couple of little nods and stuff. They mentioned the Rakata as well, who are from Knights of the Old Republic, a big sort of they're kind of supposed to be responsible for sort of seeding life in the galaxy a lot of, and making sort of planets like Tatooine and Kashyyyk and stuff. There's lots of those little nods like throughout the whole thing, just like little dropping in little nuggets, little tasty lore morsels, just like you like your little Star Wars lore, like your extended Star Wars universe. Thank you for the little morsel there.
Yeah,
tasty.
Shout out to you, Star Wars fans.
Yeah, like
I hope. Yay!
I did enjoy those morsels.
I'm glad.
Tasty.
All right, I got two more things from my notebook. I've already lost one of them. There was a point where Nemec went off about the growing list of things we've forgotten in terms of like what the Empire had taken from them, and I was like, oh, do you mean real life? Do you mean real life? When I'm like, damn, we sure are living in like. The one I've felt lately is like the absolute lack of community that exists in modern life compared to what it was, I don't know, like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. I mean, I'm not an amazing historian, but you can certainly say that like modern day living is very isolating and is certainly a thing of humanity that has been lost.
Well, isn't there always the thing people say humans are made to live and exist in small communities.
It takes a village to raise a child, you know?
Yeah, and like the existence of the internet and TV and all of this, like exposing you to stuff from outside of your small community has like shifted.
But it's also like the lack of like, it's the lack of like when I think there's a culture in which when you lose a loved one, it's like you are not expected of like anything for like a year or something. It's like for a week, like family and friends will come round and feed you and stay with you constantly, like if you need it. And then for like the following month, it's like friends and the following year, it's like Neighbors, and it's like I don't remember which culture. I want to say Jewish, maybe. It's like that would at some point I read that was like a you could call it a tradition, but like to me it just seems like an active community that it's like, you know, that is a thing of like we're supposed to be living in an environment where we have these people nearby, or not nearby, but like we interact with lots of people daily.
Yeah.
And we have them there to talk to, and we see them, and like it's that's not what happens nowadays. I think a lot of people can attest to like how, like, you know, isolating it can be. Yeah, I'm going off on this point, but the point they were making is that like there's a lot of things that have been like forgotten because of how society functions nowadays. And like in the show, Nemec was the kid talking about like how the Empire has the structure of the imperial society had taken away so much.
Sort of, yeah. He was talking about, I think it was specifically, they were like referencing they have this device to help them navigate, and they're like, ooh, that's an old one. And they're like, yeah, but it's old, it's reliable, and if it's difficult to learn how to use it, if you know how to use it, it's really good, and it's better than like what the Imperials have, the fact that the Empire is introducing these things and making you forget how the old things work, or saying they're old and rubbish, and making you reliant on their new like fancy things that they can give and take on a whim.
I weirdly think of farming practices when I think of that.
Right.
Because there's like farming communities. What was the one recently? They had a W recently where they couldn't engineer their own
JCB or somebody.
They weren't allowed to.
They weren't allowed to repair your own vehicle. You had
now
to
they
get
can.
It done
They like won the legal battle.
I think
apparently,
might have been in America, maybe.
Yeah, but like they a situation had been engineered in which farmers had to buy from one company, and they weren't allowed to like run maintenance. They weren't allowed to maintain their own tractors. Like that was illegal.
Yeah,
somehow.
I mean, it's like that with like Apple. Like you can't fix your iPhone. You have to get Apple to fix it or whatever. And it's like there's lots of things weird. Like that happens a lot in life too. But that's more corporate rather than...
It's very corporate. Yeah, and there's been no comparisons to corporate culture within any part of this show.
Yeah. But yeah, there is a lot of the things, especially with what Nemec was saying, like a lot of it does really echo real life.
Yeah. I also wanted... So I did a quick like review, a quick scan of my notes from last episode. I think just like a couple of points I made at the end and how it feels now. It's like I made a point about featuring the like strength of a community and culture. And I realized that this episode we had the wonderful example of like further down the line into this sort of imperial influence, what happens when that gets completely like stripped
that's a very
away.
Good point.
It's like they had no power to influence any of the events there.
The place that Andor lived, like with him and his mum, was Ferrex, and
they had a much stronger like community culture.
And that like helped him escape and helped them all stick together against the sort of invading corporate people. And we see the Empire moving into their land in these episodes, and we see what happens in on Aldani. We see what's happened when the Empire's been there for 12 years, and they've shifted all the population away, like sort of eradicated their culture, like just slowly and manipulatively. So yeah, that's a very good point.
I think the last thing that isn't as epic gamer spot for me, but just like I made a point about the real sort of villain in the first 3 episodes being like the power that they held. It wasn't them, it was the fact that they had the ability to exert like this influence over over Ferrex, and going with like enforcers and stuff. And I think this episode was about taking that away and like trying to undermine that. Like they were focusing on hitting them where it hurts the most, which was, you know, the thing that keeps everyone in line and kind of, I guess, shows up a bit is like, even in the rebels, is like getting paid. It's like they're taking away the wages of this entire sector, which is going to cause a hell of a lot of instability because people won't get paid, which will cause all sorts of havoc. Who knows what happens then? So I just thought that was like an interesting like. That was less of a thesis statement than the rest of the show has been so far. More of just a thing I noticed. I want to point out.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the show. I think it has been a lot better to watch it in one go than having the very tedious wait, because it's a very slow.
It's 3 episode arcs, so I think it makes sense.
And
to watch
3 episode
like
arcs,
this.
and it's just like the first 2 episodes of the arc. You're just like, they're like, oh god, I gotta wait a week between them. It's so excruciating. It's so slow, and then it pays off. Whereas watching them in one burst in like a group of 3, it just felt so much more satisfying and less grindy.
I think if you were the smallest division, it should be the first 2 episodes of an arc, and then the 3rd episode, and then the next 2 episodes, and because that is how the sort of
and there are lots of
progression is
shows that
structured.
drop 3 in one go, like Arcane. The League of Legends show did 3-part arcs, and it dropped them in groups of 3, and it was fucking
I don't
great.
know if I've said it on this podcast. I will forever disagree with and hate the sort of binge model where you drop the entire show. I hate it.
I have loves and hates with the binge. I do really enjoy just sitting down and binging a show for my, like, I do really enjoy it.
You can do that after it's aired.
Yeah.
The thing is,
what I love most about TV is being able to sit down after an episode and go onto like Twitter or Reddit or chat with friends about what happened in that episode and look at all of the theories and discussion and see like what everybody thinks. That's my favorite part, and you can't do that with a binge show because everybody's watching it at different speeds.
As a counter argument to people who will only binge things, they're not gonna go read the discussions anyway. Like if you're a person who likes to binge a show, are you gonna stop between the episodes and check the discussion threads on Reddit and the tweets on Twitter? Because if you are, you probably prefer the weekly format more because you get way more like theories and conversation out of it. It's like I hate dropping a show in its entirety because it can, as you said, it completely kills the like amount of discussion that can come up, that can come out of watching a show.
The theorizing of stuff.
That's my. How do you think I have so much to say? I watch a show. I go read the Reddit threads. I go read the fucking Tumblr posts. Sometimes you get good essays on there. I go check the Twitter posts about like, you know, specific scenes. I rewatch the clips that people post of different scenes and what's happening and what it's a callback to and what it's a like. It's like, damn, Overlite, why do you have so much to say? It's like, oh, I've just accidentally been training myself on liking shows that air weekly and liking the discussion that comes out of that. What can I say? Anyway. Good episode, eh? Good.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for listening. And we'll be doing some more Andor. We'll do episodes 7 to 9 next week. Which are my favorite ones, I think, out of the whole season. This like next sort of set, and maybe the sort of, I think it might be like 7 to 10.
Are we doing 3?
I can't. But I think we're doing 3. I'll double check.
Okay.
But they're like my
I don't know
favorite.
if I can do 4. 4's a lot.
They're my favorite episodes. Yeah, let me check. Hang on. Oh yeah, it would be better to do 7 to 10, but it is a lot.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Oh no. It's time for the bit dimension.
The bit.
It's me, Andor. All I want to do is live. But I will take your communist manifesto.
Yes, and I will agree.
And I will agree.
And I will come around eventually, I'm sure. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Until eventually I will be one rogue. That's my Rogue One reference.
Oh, I get it. Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't actually get it at first. I needed you to clarify. Yeah, I'm done.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah.